for you. Starting with today, sunny skies, very little in the way of cloud cover. We're looking at a high temperature of about 88 degrees, the heat index near 90, so yeah, great summer day. Overnight lows tonight in the 60s to near 70 degrees under clear skies tomorrow. It'll be a little muggy in the morning. The high temperature in the mid-80s, about 86 degrees, as a cool front presses through and brings us lower humidity and cooler temperatures for Sunday. In the First Alert Weather Center, I'm KMOB meteorologist Kent Darrow.
This hour of Colombo and Company brought to you by Gutter Pros. Water goes where we tell it. Call 314-656-7195 or visit them at gutterpros.com.
Hello and welcome to Colombo and Company on a Friday afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I am Tony Colombo, and we have got a lot to get to today. Fridays mean not only are we going to catch you up on everything happening in the news like we do every day, get you ready for the weekend, but we are also going to recap all of the crazy news of the week, of which there was a lot. So there's a lot to get through as we go through the afternoon today. We've got more from the WNBA. They're back in the news every day. Every day. I said it yesterday. With everything happening in this world, we're coming up on really important elections. We've got a war happening. We've got two wars happening. You know, everything surrounding issues like abortion here in Missouri and the border, you know, across the country and law enforcement. All of these big, real, serious issues. And yet, somehow the WNBA finds a way every day to make their news even bigger than all of that other stuff, because their reluctance, their inability to just simply say men can't play women's basketball has created just an absolute circus and storm, if you will, for that league. And so there's more today, and we'll talk about it. Speaking of the wars, we've got an update on what's happening with Iran that we'll talk about as we go through the day. More on the possible replacement of Caroline Leavitt as the White House press secretary. Trump making an announcement about a new space policy. His new space policy, he's ramping up U.S. space activity, which I think is awesome. We'll fill you in on that as we go through the afternoon. We've got California passing more laws to go after ICE agents. Yikes. And we've got an interesting local development. The federal government has announced its agreement and the final results of its investigation into Sheriff Alfred Montgomery. Remember him? Old Loaded Dice? Yeah. So we're going to talk about him also as we go through the afternoon. Perfect day to talk about some of that local stuff, as we'll have the former mayor of Ferguson, James Knowles, who's also the city manager of Troy, Missouri. Mayor Knowles will be with us in the 3 o'clock hour. He'll be with us right at 3 o'clock, so just a little less than an hour from now. Also, since it's Friday, we will get the all-important weekend forecast from Channel 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton in about 40 minutes from now, right around 2:45. We'll get the weekend forecast from Steve. Looking forward to that. And right now, joining us in the studio, as he does every Friday, to help get us ready for the weekend and recap another crazy week, Ken Williams, the executive producer and co-host of the Vic Porcelli Show. Great to see you, buddy.
Well, thank you for having me on the show, my friend, and hi, Ashlyn.
You like the characterization of S Storm in the end of the,
It's
in the
pretty
WNBA?
good. You're getting better. You're almost getting like Vic.
Yeah,
You
right.
can-
You gotta watch yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta watch yourself. But it's so true. I mean, they're back in the news today, because the Attorney General of Texas, Ken Paxton, who's the Republican Senate nominee down there as well, was in the news addressing specifically Sophie Cunningham and her supporters. So Sophie Cunningham, just to try to give, I think most people know what's going on, but just to try to, give the Cliff Notes update here.
Sure.
This is all about men. This is all about men playing women's sports. This is what
That's
all of this is centered around. The WNBA has some other issues too.
Oh, big time.
They have some other issues too with racism and
all of it.
And but the main issue and the main topic that has been in the news is their inability to come out and say that men cannot play in our Women's National Basketball Association, the WNBA, to the point where, just looking back at this week, like I said, some of the stories, we had a former NBA player, a man.
Two.
Yeah, two, you're right.
I think maybe even three now, though. There might be even another one.
Declare for the WNBA draft.
Yeah.
And said, the one, Royce White, his was hilarious. He said, for the purposes of pro basketball, I identify as a woman.
Yes.
So only then. Only when it comes to the topic of pro basketball.
In all fairness, they didn't delineate between, whether or not it should be during that or for everything, all-encompassing, whatever, yeah.
Sophie Cunningham, who's one of the stars of that league, who's also the teammate of Caitlin Clark, and, there's the whole other can of worms with the WNBA and Caitlin Clark and Sophie Cunningham, but she's been one of the most outspoken players in that league about protecting women's sports and protecting that league from men playing in it, and has gotten a lot of hate and a lot of pushback. She's got a lot of support too. She's got, it's been a mixed bag. So
I think more.
So more hate or more support?
More support.
Oh, I think more support.
Yeah.
I think because it's one of these 80-20 issues.
Yeah.
Maybe 90-10.
Yeah.
So the vast majority of people support her, but there's still a very vocal, intense, woke minority that, screams at the top of their lungs when these things are happening. So Ken Paxton attended an Indiana Fever game against the Dallas Wings with his daughter this week. The two wore matching XXXY shirts.
That's great.
That's which some people have been kicked out of WNBA games for wearing those shirts. When asked whether Cunningham supporters had received fair treatment from the WNBA, Paxton stopped short of condemning the league, saying, quote, "Look, I think they're working on it. I have concerns, but I'm hopeful that things are getting better in that regard." Paxton answered a question on whether he would become involved if supporters face unfair treatment, saying he was, quote, "looking into the issue." He did not indicate any plans for any formal action. I think what they're referring to there is the people that have been kicked out for wearing those shirts, those XXXY shirts, which Sophie Cunningham has been endorsing that message, and the people wearing those shirts, and some of them have been kicked out of games, and people are saying, "Hey, look, is this unfair treatment of these fans?" and other things that have happened. So now it's starting to make its way to lawmakers and people in the state government that are getting questions about, are you going to do something about this because it's madness? And Ken, the whole thing could be solved if the WNBA just wrote one sentence: you have to be a biological female to play in this league. It ends everything. It ends it ends the circus. It ends the spectacle of these guys, that are making themselves eligible for the draft and all of these other problems.
So the WNBA can't even define the first word in their name.
Correct.
That's it.
Correct.
WNBA, they can't define it. And that's where it all starts, because they started this. I mean, if you mentioned that Paxton and his daughter were kicked out of the game. Or they could have been.
They weren't, but people that have worn those shirts that they were wearing have been.
Okay, but during that time that those little girls were kicked out, there was a mother and a daughter, I believe, they were kicked out.
They were wearing that exact same
XX and XY shirts.
They were wearing the exact same shirt.
At the same time, Tony, there were other people wearing I Am for Trans Children shirts and things like that, and no one said anything. I mean, this is, what's happening with Sophie Cunningham is interesting because she's saying, I don't advocate for men playing in women's sports. I don't want to see. I advocate for girls not getting hurt.
Yeah.
She's staying in that lane. She's not saying anything about trans, nothing.
Yeah.
She's just saying, please listen to me when I say this. This is where I'm at. This is my lane. That's all I want you to understand is that I don't want men playing in girls' sports because I don't want girls to get hurt. They say, oh, well, you're against trans. No, you're not listening to me. And they're trying so hard to push her into that lane to where she says, okay, I don't like trans either. Yeah. But she's not saying that.
No.
She said, I think everybody has a right to do what they want to do.
Yeah, and I believe her. And I believe that she's genuine. I don't think that she's like hiding it or trying not to go too far or reveal too much about herself because I feel the same way.
Yeah.
I feel the same way. I don't care if you want to dress
do it
like a man or a woman, if you want to identify as a man or a woman, if you want to, live the lifestyle, you are free to do all of those things. But you are not free to go into the locker room with my daughter, who is an athlete, and you're not free to compete against my daughter if you are a biological male. You're not. That's not. There's a big difference between the rights to live the way that you want to live and infringing on the safety and security and well-being of an entire group of athletes. Big difference.
And you mentioned it, Tony. It's a 90-10 issue in this country. A vast majority of people feel the same way you and I feel and Sophie Cunningham feels, okay? But think about this. We've never really complained about the transvestites.
No.
They've been historically here for many, many decades. What about the drag shows that were on TV? TV shows that were based on that.
Yeah.
We didn't say anything about it. We said, okay, you do you. I don't want to watch it, but hey, you go ahead. It's fun. It's funny.
It's okay.
My wife and their friends would go, hey, we're going to go to a drag show. And I'd be like, hey, have fun.
Right.
I'm not going.
Yeah.
But you know what? Have a great time. So then
Agreed.
I think that pissed off the left. They said, well, we're not making anybody angry.
Right.
So we got to do it.
So we've got to accuse people of thinking a way that they don't. We've got to accuse people like Sophie Cunningham of being anti-trans when she's not. It reminds me, Ken, exactly of J.K. Rowling. J.K. Rowling, who wrote the Harry Potter books, who came out. She was one of the first celebrities to speak out when all this was happening, when she said that there shouldn't be boys going into girls' bathrooms, and she was basically just speaking out to protect women's safety. But she's been painted as an anti-trans advocate, which she is not in any way. It's been just like Sophie Cunningham, it's been no, I am pro women's sports, protecting women's safety, not allowing, them to feel uncomfortable or lose out a position on a team because of a boy. Like, I'm here to protect women's sports and women's safety. I'm not anti-trans, but she's been labeled anti-trans now for years, even though that's not what she said. Just like Sophie Cunningham. It's the exact same thing.
And I want to navigate this a little bit because I have seen videos and pictures of drag men, revealing their junk to children. While they're doing these drag shows, they're doing a little drag show story time at the library.
Yeah, that's gross.
And then they accidentally, look what
It's
I'm
not
doing.
for kids.
No.
You said, drag shows. All right, I'm okay with drag shows. This idea of we did a story yesterday about the one of the Democratic Senate nominee, U.S. Senate nominee in Florida. I can't remember her name. I don't have it in front of me anymore. But who said that drag shows were wholesome family entertainment that she would bring her children to, that's just not what it is. That's not what it's ever been.
No.
And it's a great point. Like, I said, live how you want to live, dress how you want to dress, identify how you want to identify. I don't care about any of those things as long as you're not hurting me as long as you're not hurting other people.
A child, yeah.
Yeah. And that's why, and those shows, they've always had a very a sexual, vibe part of the show, and I don't have any problem with that.
But Tony,
it's certainly not for kids, and anybody that is doing that in front of children, now that is a big problem. Now we do have a problem that I'm going to get involved in and need to be addressed.
Tony, when I was 18, this is a long time ago, I was playing baseball down in New Orleans, and our coaches would say, okay, over there is this bar that they're men, they dress up as women. So understand that, knowing going in there that they're women. They're the men, but they're
Right.
dressing up as women. And we'd be like, oh, okay, well, we don't want to go in there. And he'd go, no, I don't want you guys going in there, but I just want you to know that that's there.
Yeah.
If you wanted to, if your dad wants to take you, fine. That's it.
Yeah.
We were 18 years old.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So that even back then we were like, well, they're transvestites. They dress up as women.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way it was. Now it's a thing because they want to make it a thing. Now, okay, you want to play? You want to play? Fafo? You ever hear about that? That's what's happening.
Well, there's this other athlete. So we talked about these guys, the former NBA players that have, drawn attention to this and made it a spectacle and called out the WNBA for this, madness by trying to make themselves eligible for the WNBA draft, even though they're former men's NBA players. There's a real man basketball player in France who is described as a transgender phenom. It's a man whose name is Julie Tetart, Tetart, Tetart. There's videos of this. He is trying to get into the WNBA. There's videos out there of him playing basketball. He looks like a man. I mean, he's a man with a ponytail. That's all he looks
So like Brittany Griner,
like a man. But maybe even worse. Like really, like also like cut, like really like, like not bodybuilder, but like, but like somebody who is, has a tremendous physique as well. And there's video out of this person and playing in women's games, and they're just unstoppable. It looks like an adult playing against 10-year-olds.
Well, what you just described is what it is. It's the same thing. Can you imagine,
And
if a pro baseball player was going to go play a girls softball team?
And there's some people that are saying, like, why hasn't this person got a chance to play? Like that the 10%, the loud 10% that we've talked about, like, oh, this person's not getting a fair shake because they're not. This person should be playing in the WNBA. Look how good they are. Well, yeah, because it's a man playing women's basketball. Yeah. So there's another side of this that's still being pushed as well. But again, Ken, if the WNBA would just come to just come to reality and just say, look, biological men cannot play in this league, all of this would be over. But they just can't say it. They just can't say it.
For those who don't know a lot about what's happening with the WNBA right now, they actually had a meeting with their top leadership for like 3 or 4 hours, and they couldn't figure out. And then the whole goal was to define what a woman is and what they're going to do about it. They couldn't even define what the woman is.
You don't need to have a meeting. You don't need to put together a committee.
Look at the shirt. Look at the shirt that those people are wearing. XXXY.
You don't need to form a committee. You don't need to have a meeting. You don't need to have a discussion for multiple hours. You don't need any of that. It's real easy to tell what a man and a woman is.
Well,
like
Vicky
you
has
said,
one
the chromosomes have just the chromosomes don't lie.
Vic, well, there's a test you can do. Yeah, it's called blood test. He goes, no.
Yeah.
There's another test.
There is another
All
test.
you got to do is just go grab
Yeah,
the junk
all you
and
gotta
say,
do is look.
okay, look,
Yeah.
you're a guy. Get out of here.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it literally is that simple. It is, and it really is that simple. But they just can't admit it. It somehow violates their beliefs to just to describe or admit the differences between a man and a woman.
Tony, you just nailed it. If they actually came out and said it, XXXY, sorry, that would destroy the whole narrative.
Yeah, but why? It shouldn't.
For them, no, I'm saying their narrative.
It would, yeah. But in reality, it doesn't take away one bit of legitimacy or rights or anything from any human being, trans or otherwise.
You know what it would do, though? It would make them sound more logical.
Yeah. Yeah. The WNBA, I said this yesterday, with the rise of Caitlin Collins of Caitlin Clark and of Sophie Cunningham, this should be like the period of time where the WNBA is experiencing the most growth and success in the history of their league. And they are finding a way to absolutely destroy this opportunity where more people are buying tickets and more people are watching on television than ever. Instead of embracing that and going with the growth of their league with a generational star like Caitlin Clark, much like the PGA did with Tiger Woods.
Yeah. Oh, and
when
they embraced
PGA,
him.
Yeah, when he lifted the PGA up, when he was on his run, instead of doing that, the WNBA is finding a way to make it to make Caitlin Clark the villain, and find a way to just absolutely be on the wrong side of a 90-10 issue. I've never seen a league do so many things, go out of their way, and try so hard to destroy itself.
Yeah.
Than what's been happening in the WNBA. Ken Williams from the Vic Porcelli Show is here. So is a freaking gnat. Sorry that I
know, I saw
it. Ken's sticking around. We're going to talk about Trump's new space policy. Also, if you think that was enough of craziness for the week, I've got a little list of just the things that we saw this week.
I love it.
Yeah, like how crazy things have been. Also want to get you updated on this new action taken by the state of California that is very hypocritical. What a surprise when it comes to dealing with ICE and federal law enforcement agencies. Lots to talk about. Ken Williams is here, and you're listening to Colombo and Company on 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
Made in St. Louis for St. Louis. It's News Talk STL. If you find yourself feeling out of place in the world, it's comforting to know conservative values haven't been abandoned everywhere.
Thanks for being my voice in all this.
This is News Talk STL.
There are people out there that feel the way that I feel and say what I say.
Welcome home.
Looking for a hardware store that treats you like family? Welcome to True Value Schneider's Hardware, your local gem in Old Town St. Peters. For over 100 years, we're proudly serving St. Charles County, providing everything from lawn and garden supplies to plumbing and electrical. Need a bolt or fastener? We've got you covered. And don't forget, we're a steel dealership. Whether you need sales, parts, or service, ask for Charlie or Jerry when you come in. We're here to help. Call 636-278-4461 or visit us online at truevalue.com/Schneiders.
Hi, I'm Rodney Wallner.
And I'm Jen Wallner with the Wallner Home Selling Team at Berkshire Hathaway.
Hey, Jen, how do you sell your home for top dollar?
That's easy. Call the Wallner Home Selling Team at 314-810-SOLD.
What if I want a flexible commission plan?
Call the Wallner Home Selling Team at 314-810-SOLD.
What's the best time to sell your home?
Right now, call the Wallner Home Selling Team at 314-810-SOLD.
For all your real estate needs, call the Wallner Home Selling Team at 314-810-SOLD.
That's 314-810-SOLD.
Looking for insurance you can truly trust? Since 1986, Bauer Insurance Agency has been protecting families and businesses across Missouri and Illinois. Owner Cindy Blanton doesn't just offer one quote. She shops all the top carriers like Progressive, Travelers, Safeco, and more to find you the best rates. Whether it's your home, auto, toys, or business, we've got you covered. Visit us at Mid-Rivers Mall in St. Peters or call 636-812-2001. Bauer Insurance Agency, the company that protects. The name you can trust.
This is 1019 and 94.1.
Female millennial Trump supporter. I listen to it like every day. Like, seriously, you get it.
News Talk STL.
I never met a girl who makes me feel the way that you do. You're all right.
Welcome back to Colombo Company on 1019 94.1 News Talk STL. And just a little bit, we're going to get the weekend forecast from Channel 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. And in the 3 o'clock hour, we're going to talk to the former mayor of Ferguson, Missouri. Mayor James Knowles is going to join us. I want to talk to him about the federal government's investigation results into the former mayor of the former sheriff of St. Louis, Alfred Montgomery, loaded dice Montgomery. And I know that Mayor Knowles has a lot of thoughts about flock cameras, which is becoming a big issue across the area. In fact, not only are we going to talk about flock cameras with Mayor James Knowles this afternoon, one day next week, and we're working on locking it in, Sheriff Montgomery from Jefferson County, or Sheriff Marshak, excuse me. Sheriff Dave Marshak, the current sheriff of Jefferson County, is going to join us to talk about flock cameras because it's something that he mentioned last time he was on with us, that he has a lot to say about that issue. A lot of sheriffs there in that conversation. Yeah, Sheriff Dave Marshak from Jeff County is going to talk about flock cameras. Sheriff Alfred Montgomery from St. Louis is in trouble from the U.S. government. So let's get it right here.
You know, you mentioned Mayor Knowles, and I just remember him from the days of Michael Brown, that whole thing.
Yeah.
He was such a great person to have to talk to and to calm things down and everything.
Yeah.
It was just really
and was
he's
reelected
such a good
after
guy.
that, and would probably still be the mayor of Ferguson if he wasn't term limited out. You know.
Yeah.
And now he's working with Troy, Missouri, as the manager up there in that city. So he's somebody who's got a lot of experience and insight when it comes to city management and city government from the inside. Not necessarily, we talk to a lot of reps, senators and reps and congressmen and women and things like that. But, there's another side of that city government of mayors and people within. Yeah, you got the gnat over there
Yeah,
now?
Nat came over to me now.
No, I don't know what's going on. One gnat can really screw things up for the whole studio. That's Ken Williams. I'm Tony Colombo. This is Colombo and Company. And as I mentioned, I wanted to just look back. Maybe I'll start doing this every Friday, Ken, when you're in. Just look at some of the headlines and stories of just this week and how crazy this world is. Because it moves so fast, and we've gotten so, I think we've got so used to just chaos that it's pretty amazing when you look back and just look at some of the stories and the conversations that you've had recently, just how wild the news cycle is and how crazy this world is. So I was just looking back at some of the stories from this week as I was doing my show prep today. This week was the beginning of the trial with Meta, where the U.S. government is looking into whether Meta lied to its customers and has created to young people. So we'll see how that plays out, but that is starting this week. It's expected to continue. Mark Zuckerberg is going to testify in this, the day when that happens, that is going to be everywhere, obviously.
Another
this trial could
circus,
go 4 to 6 weeks. So it could be, I don't know when exactly he's going to be testifying, but has a lot of impact on what's coming, depending on the decision made here. If they're, if Meta is found liable or guilty or whatever it is in this case could have a major impact on all social media platforms. Because like I've been saying, if you're going to tell me that Facebook is addictive to young people, then what the hell is TikTok?
Oh.
I mean, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, other social media platforms, even YouTube, you know, could fall in there. So we're going to see how that goes. All right? That's a little bit normal.
Yeah.
Here's some of the other ones that we covered this week. The fake poll in Los Angeles. Did you see this one? The polling company.
The manipulation?
That was just Median Strategies.
Yeah.
That put out a poll a couple weeks ago about the race for mayor in L.A. with Karen Bass. And they also had put out polls regarding Francesca Hong when she was running in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And they've been putting out these polls, and specifically in L.A., Karen Bass was even retweeting the polls that showed her way ahead in the races. And then this week, that company, Median Strategies, came out and said, we're not a real company. This was all a social media. This was all a social experiment.
Experiment, yeah.
When none of this is real. These politicians have been retweeting, and the media has been reporting on these polls.
And
talking about
leaning on
hey,
them.
look at how far ahead Karen Bass is in these.
Well, Francesca Hong, you mentioned.
Yeah, she was.
That was potentially very dangerous.
Yeah. Their polls showed her way ahead, and she lost
23% lead.
Yeah, but you
And
got
she ended up
Karen
losing.
Bass and others. You know, you got the media there in L.A. reporting on these poll numbers, retweeting them, putting them in their own social media posts, and this company comes out this week and says, "Yeah, we're not a real polling company. This was just a social experiment to see how people would react to poll results." What?
Well, but think about Think about the track record of these left-leaning organizations. You've got this group that's, no, we would never really were. We were just an experiment. And then SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center, for example, that they used. Tony, they used this company for 10 years as the standard bearer for any racism and white supremacy and everything.
You're right.
And they used it as the initial thing that they said President Trump was a racist on.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out that they were all helping the white supremacists.
But I don't know, is this is this group, is it similar to that? Or were they exposing how quickly people on the left or the media will latch on to a poll result from without checking in to see who's conducting this poll or what did they expose it? I don't know. I don't know the answer.
But that's a very interesting
I don't know the answer.
question.
I don't know if they were putting out their polls because they were trying to build momentum for Francesca Hong and Karen Bass, or if they were truly just like, hey, this was a social experiment to show you how people will fall for polls. And we proved it by doing this. I don't know the answer.
Well, that's a very good question, actually. But at best, Tony, it's irresponsible because had it worked, what if it would have worked with Francesca Hong?
Yeah.
Then would they have come out if she would have won? Would they have come out? Oh, well, guess what? That 23% lead that she had, that was all a lie.
Their statement was, quote, Median Strategies was created as a short-term social experiment to examine how purported polling information could enter and spread through the political information ecosystem without independent verification. We are not seeking publicity or attention. Well, I don't know about that. For the individuals involved and are...
That's interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't even look at it that way.
Yeah. So they were saying, look, we were just kind of showing you how ridiculous, how the media, like, if they like a story, they won't look to verify it. If you're on their side, they won't try to verify. They won't look into it. If we said, hey, look, we're a polling company and we did a poll and your guy's winning. Oh, thanks for that information. We'll publish that right now.
Wow.
Yeah, like.
So if that was their intent, though, that was kind of still irresponsible.
Yeah, it's still to my point, a circus.
Right, yeah.
The madness of
Wow.
what's happening in the news. Another one from this week. A man who had received the Minnesota Outstanding Refugee Award was accused of fraud and has ties to a sex trafficking ring in Minnesota.
Yep.
So this guy, Salman Ahmed Elmi, is now facing 3 counts of aiding and abetting by swindle and 5 counts of aiding and abetting by false representation as part of an alleged scam to bill Medicaid for over $1 million in fraudulent services. Now, and he's also, the charges also allege that 2 members involved in the same scheme are tied to a sex trafficking ring. So not necessarily direct connection from this guy, but he was part of a scheme that had other people in it that were tied to this sex trafficking ring. So that's pretty close, and he might, which would indicate that he could be involved in that as well. So this guy who scammed Minnesota Medicaid for over $1 million and has ties to a sex trafficking ring had won the Outstanding Refugee honor and an entrepreneurship award in 2021 from the state of Minnesota. Tim Walz. That's why during Tim Walz.
Oh, my goodness.
It's all Tim Walz. It's all Tim Walz. Tim Walz, Keith Ellison, Ilhan Omar.
Tim Walz, I never
Jacob Fry, all of them.
Well, that makes sense now.
Yeah.
That totally makes sense.
Yeah. A state that's riddled with fraud now.
It is so bad there.
Yeah. Tim Walz gave this guy an award a couple of years ago, and now he's conducted fraud against the state for over $1 million and could be tied to a sex. Way to go, Tim Walz.
Now,
keep up the good work.
Outside of the Somali voting bloc there and everything, what do you think? What do you think the result of this is going to be? Because I saw a video of a Minnesotan who said, "I am ashamed. I live here, and I am so ashamed of what's happening here." Okay, do you think the majority of Minnesota right now sees this and they're going to do something about it? Maybe, I don't know.
I hope so.
Or is it too far gone? Is it like California?
I don't get it. Why though, Minnesota? It's so weird to me. That, I've talked about this before. It's so weird to me that Minnesota. When you think of Minnesota, you don't think of the crazy progressive politics that you think of when you think of California or New York or Chicago.
Right. I think of Vikings.
I guess there's just enough, much like Illinois. Illinois, if you look at like a county map of the voting, like you'll see that most of Illinois votes red.
Yeah.
Like overwhelmingly. But
yeah,
Chicago,
especially our listening area.
But but Chicago just has so much population, therefore so much control over the state that it doesn't matter. Maybe that's what's happening with Minnesota, with Minneapolis being, just dictating
everything.
The rest of the state. But yeah, Tim Walz's Outstanding Refugee Award winner is tied to a sex trafficking ring and stealing money from Medicaid. Just unbelievable.
Well, maybe Barry Obama knew what he was doing when he took that whole Somali refugee block and set it down in Minneapolis, thinking, okay, that's the biggest influence, and eventually they're going to help influence things the way I want them to go. That's just my own personal interpretation.
Yeah. One more story that stood out to me from the craziness of this past week was a CBS poll that showed that Democrats across the country have a much more positive view of socialism than they do capitalism. Democrats across the country, according to CBS News, which I think is a more credible polling institution than Median Strategies.
Maybe. I don't know.
Found that 58% of Democrat voters across the country have a positive view of socialism. 58% of Democrats have a positive view of socialism. Just 32% of Democrats have a positive view of capitalism. And in that same story, Andy Beshear, who's the Democratic governor of Kentucky, was on CBS talking about that poll earlier this week. And in that poll, he called, again, for the elimination of the Electoral College.
Oh, yeah.
So fake polls, refugees, honored refugees stealing from Medicaid, and Democratic leaders calling for the elimination of the Electoral College. All in just 1 week. It's pretty crazy.
Man, yeah.
It moves quick.
And it really does, Tony. In fact, you'll find this, though, because of your show that you do, it's difficult sometimes to choose which stories you're going to be using.
Yeah, and it's hard.
There's only so much time.
And it's hard to, even if you can talk about all of the things that you want to talk about, there's so much that it's hard to focus on one or remember one. You know, like, where do we spend our focus? On trying to clean up the fraud in Minnesota, try to fight the battle to keep the Electoral College, try to fight the battle against packing the Supreme Court or making D.C. a state, trying to, make things right and get on the right path with Iran, trying to make sure that we're doing what we need to be doing at the border. It's just, there's so much. Amendment 3 coming up here in Missouri is going to be such a big deal. It's like, how do you there's so many things happening out there. How do you focus on them and try to address each one? It's a lot. And that's why I wanted to just a little reminder of just how crazy the news cycle is in just 1 week.
Tony, I think it's by design. I really do. I think the Democrats are doing that on purpose so that we will
throwing,
make it like whack-a-mole. When one falls down, the next one pops up. For that reason, to keep us on not focusing on what they're really doing.
Well, it's definitely been a strategy by many. I mean, I didn't even mention Anthony Fauci. Think about all the Anthony Fauci stuff from this past week.
Yeah.
On top of that, we found out that it looks like the Biden administration was literally hiding the diary. That's why it took so long for it to come out. They were literally hiding the diary and not releasing it when they released other things that they were supposed to. And that's why it took so long to get the information out of Fauci's diary. But, yeah, I mean, just it's definitely a strategy for people like Anthony Fauci and the Bidens and James Comey. They know that because this world is so crazy and our attention span is so short, that when all the heat gets piled on them, if they can just keep their head down and let some time go by, there's so much going on. There's so many other things to worry about that they know that Americans will start to pay attention to other things and move on. And they count on it.
Yeah, my closing thought to all this is that I agree. I think that what they're doing, there's so much corruption on the left that we found it. We've documented. We have it in our hands, and yet no one's been incarcerated. Mm-hmm. No one's been arrested. I mean, there are some, lower level people being arrested.
But not the big
people.
But
not the ones who are orchestrating the whole thing.
Yeah. How is Keith Ellison and Tim Walz not facing serious criminal charges in Minnesota? How is James Comey?
John Brennan. Joe Biden.
How is Anthony Fauci? How is
Barack Obama?
Joe Biden. Hunter Biden.
Yeah.
Hillary Clinton. All these people. How are they not facing criminal charges, or at least much more serious punishment than any of them have had to this point? Because, well, one, because they're rich and powerful, and there's Republicans that have benefited from these same things as well, of course, but the left is, really leading the way when it comes to this stuff. So there's a lot, obviously, that goes along with being rich and powerful, but also to that point of just there's so much going on. And if you can just keep your head down and let everybody sort of move on to the next thing.
I can't wait for next week.
You're going to be, right? I know. Crazy, crazy stuff. Speaking of the coming days and going into next week, see how I did that? We are going to get the weekend forecast from Channel 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton in just a moment. Don't forget to tune in every weekday, 9 a.m. to noon, 3-hour tour with Ken Williams and, of course, Vic Porcelli. Ken, thanks as always for your time, my friend. Great to talk with you.
Thanks, Tony Colombo. Have a good weekend. You too, Ashlyn.
Great stuff there. And, we are going to talk to the former mayor of Ferguson, James Knowles, in the 3 o'clock hour, but we're going to get that weekend forecast from Steve Templeton next.
For podcast articles and more, find us on newstalkstl.com. Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
Some Gen Zers are embracing socialism and trashing capitalism. Nicole Heyer of Heritage will explain why they need capitalism more than ever at 5:20.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps. Weekdays at 4 on News Talk STL.
Calling all patriots. Join the St. Louis County Republicans for the annual Lincoln Reagan Day Dinner, Saturday, September 19th at River City Casino. Our keynote speaker, Newsmax personality, Rob Carson. Enjoy a full night of fun and information alongside state and local officials and candidates. It's an evening you won't want to miss. Dinner and program, just $75. For tickets, email Renee Artman at hotmail.com or call 314-398-6667.
It's 11 p.m. Saturday. The bars are winding down, but Ken Kruger's just getting started. Music and thoughts from a Cleveland High original. It's Last Call, Saturday nights at 11 on News Talk STL. Brought to you by Weber Chevrolet.
Steve Templeton's Weekend Forecast, brought to you by Connor Roofing. You can count on Connor for all your roofing needs. Visit ConnorRoofing.com. That's CONNER Roofing.com.
Welcome back to Colombo and Company on 101.9, 94.1 News Talk STL. Great conversation with Ken Williams from the Vic Porcelli Show. And that last segment coming up, the former mayor of Ferguson, Missouri, James Knowles, will be on the line with us. And right now, it is time to get the weekend forecast from Channel 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton, who is on the line now. Steve, thanks as always for your time, my friend. And hey, listen, it's not been so bad. It's not been so. It hasn't been crazy
hot.
Out loud. Right. Yeah. Let's try to.
We don't want to jinx
Maybe
it.
we're going in the right direction here. As kids get ready to go back to school, I think the vast majority of kids in the area start school next week. I know my kids go back on Monday, so the weather going to be extra important for all of that for the schools and the kids. So yeah. How we looking?
Yeah, mine are going back next week, too, and it's about time. I'm ready.
Yeah, no kidding. Actually, my kids are ready, believe it or not. They've been saying to me, like, they're looking for it. That'll last about a week, but I'll take it while I can get it. So,
well, this last weekend, they get to enjoy some pretty nice weather. If anything, it actually is going to get nicer because the humidity will be falling through the weekend. So we'll have some warm days, not too hot, but also low humidity. I mean, for August, we have some really nice days coming our way. Today's one of them. It's just a little bit humid. It's not bad at all, though. Nice day today. And then tonight we drop down to 71 for the low. Overnight, there's a very slim chance for a spot storm. I think they're going to miss St. Louis to the northeast, but a spot storm northeast overnight, done by daybreak, and low of 71. Mostly sunny in the afternoon, 87 for the high. Normal's 88, so this is near normal heat, but with falling humidity through the day, it really should be a nice day. This weak front comes through and just brings in a little bit lower humidity as the day goes on, and that sets us up for a really nice Sunday. A low in the 60s, mid-60s, 83 in the afternoon, sunshine to start, turning partly cloudy, but low humidity and 83 Sunday. I'll take that every time.
Man, no kidding. So, like an 83 that actually feels kind of like 83.
Right.
Because
not an 83 that feels like 105. No,
yeah, right, exactly. Because you may
felt like 105.
Absolutely, and because you make a good point. Even yesterday afternoon, evening, I was cutting the grass, and it wasn't that hot outside, but I was still dripping. I was still sweating like crazy because the humidity was still, still a factor.
When the sun goes down, it's definitely more pleasant. But if you're doing something active, and your body starts sweating, I think then you kind of notice the mugginess a lot more.
Yeah.
But again, that's starting to improve. So I think it'll be much better for us this weekend.
That's awesome. So as far as we can at least see into the future, does it as the kids go back to school next week? Does it last, or do we revert back to the high temperatures?
So Sunday's weather does not last, but we don't have extreme heat. It does get hotter as the week goes on next week. I have low 80s on Monday. That's still pretty nice.
Yeah.
Tuesday, mid 80s, and then Wednesday, upper 80s. So, it climbs a little bit, but that's kind of where it stops. Highs around 87 to 88. That's near normal by mid to late week next week. The humidity will go up, not right away on Monday. That's a low humidity day, but Tuesday starts to get a little bit steamy. So, some subtle changes as we kind of edge back towards warm/hot and humid, but nothing extreme in the forecast at this point. And I'm not seeing any extreme rainfall or big storm systems. I have some subtle rain chances, 20% chance Monday and Wednesday next week. Otherwise, I think a lot of dry time and just near normal heat.
That's about as good as you can ask for this time of year,
right?
I mean, right?
Yeah.
Like that's about as much as you could hope for in St. Louis in late August and heading into September. I can't believe we're getting that close. Go ahead.
I think we've earned some days like this.
Yeah.
So, the summer's been, either it's stormy and wet or really hot, and so we've earned some decent, calmer, quiet weather. This weekend's going to be just fantastic.
And definitely take advantage of it while it's here, because you never know how long it's going to last. So I'll take it. That's a very solid weekend forecast, and heading into next week as the kids get going back to school. Steve Templeton, thank you so much, as always, for your time today and for everything that you and the Channel 4 weather team do for us all week long, keeping us and our listeners up to date on what's happening out there with the weather. Can't thank you enough.
My pleasure. Good luck to your kids and all the kids going back to school.
Back at you. Have a great weekend, my friend. We'll talk to you soon.
Take care.
Yeah, that's awesome stuff. Channel 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. And that is not a bad weekend forecast at all. 87 tomorrow with humidity dropping. Mostly sunny tomorrow, and 83, partly cloudy, 83, low humidity on Sunday. 87 and 83 with not too much humidity. A weekend in August in St. Louis. That's about as good as it gets, so cannot complain about that whatsoever. A little bit of breaking news here as we were talking to Steve. Story came across the Supreme Court has made a ruling. U.S. Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts has temporarily allowed above-ground construction of President Donald Trump's White House ballroom to continue today, issuing a stay of a lower court injunction that had been blocking that work from happening. This was when it was stopped a week or two ago. It was one of the things that we talked with Susie Moore about. Susie's with us every Tuesday, our legal expert. I'm sure we'll have more details when we talk to her on Tuesday. But I want to fill you in on what we know about this ruling by John Roberts this afternoon. And we're going to get into a conversation about some of the local issues, like the flock camera issue, and the latest ruling by the federal government when it comes to former St. Louis Sheriff Alfred Montgomery. Those details were released here in the last day. So we're going to get into all of that and more as we continue the conversation with the former mayor of Ferguson, Mayor James Knowles, next.
When the storm hits and a tree comes down, you need someone you can trust right now. OLI Outdoor Services in Godfrey is on call 24/7 for emergency tree removal, trimming, stump grinding, and land clearing. Serving Illinois and Missouri with licensed, insured professionals and over 200 years of combined experience. Tree removal starting at just $2.99. Free estimates, plus financing. Visit OLIOutdoorservices.com or call 1-888-5-SAWING.
Hey there, Chris Cooper here, your financial friend with Serene Wealth Management. You know, inflation, it's a real cost we can't control. We have to spend our money wisely, but not just today. We want to make sure we enjoy our lifestyle today in terms of tomorrow's dollars as well. So we have to budget for it. We have to understand how inflation impacts our lives. It's the conversation we're going to have this Sunday on the Serene Wealth Now show, right here, News Talk STL. Tune in Sunday morning, 9 a.m. We will see you there.
Investment advice offered through Fortis Capital Advisors, LLC.
Public schools, like public libraries, should be free and open to all. Open enrollment allows parents to choose the school that's the best fit for their children. Maybe another school has a wider curriculum, is bigger or smaller. Maybe a kid is being bullied and would be more comfortable at another school. 75% of parents favor open enrollment. Open enrollment programs now exist in 43 states, and Missouri should join them. Our next-door neighbor, Kansas, has one of the strongest open enrollment policies in the nation. Kansas parents are trusted with choices and options, while Missouri parents must move out of their home to change public schools. And it's a trend. Nationwide, the percentage of students going to their chosen public school has steadily increased. Assigning kids to schools based on their zip code is the old way. Open enrollment is a better way. Learn more at showmeinstitute.org. The Show Me Minute has been brought to you by Show Me Institute and Show Me Opportunity.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefonte, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
News this hour at Town Hall. I'm Bob Agnew in Washington. The Supreme Court's Chief Justice is allowing the White House to continue construction of President Trump's $400 million White House ballroom project for now. Chief Justice John Roberts signed a temporary order on Friday, letting work continue as the court considers an emergency appeal from the administration. Lower courts had ordered a halt to the project. Storms and even possible tornadoes pummeled parts of the Northeast yesterday. Storms tore through a beach on Long Island. Nassau County Executive Bruce Blakeman.
Yesterday at approximately 7:11 p.m., we had a tornado touchdown here in Atlantic Beach at the Sun and Surf Beach Club. There was extensive damage.
Storms also stranded dozens of people in their cars in New Jersey and knocked out power in parts of Delaware's capital city. Tens of thousands of people in Indiana still with no power a week after a big storm there.
This is the second week now.
Shatia Harden lives in Gary, Indiana.
We can be used to it, but it's not okay for us to be used to it.
Living without power since storms hit some 10 days ago. Northern Indiana Public Service Company says it has restored power to more than 300,000 customers since August 11th. But as of Thursday, more than 60,000 were still without electricity, forced to throw away spoiled food and lining up for hot meals.
We thrive best, as humans, on certainty and predictability.
Radia Martins with the Flourish Community Hub in Gary. The utility says some areas may not have electricity restored until next week. I'm Ben Thomas.
Some feisty rhetoric coming from the premier of a Canadian province, angry over President Trump's threat for a 50% tariff. And Manitoba Premier Wab Kano says Canada should not make any concessions to the United States. He says they have plenty of leverage in the talks against the U.S. On Wall Street near the close of Dow was up 550. More at townhall.com.
Hi, I'm Kirk Cameron. Christian Healthcare Ministries is not another health insurance policy. If you're tired of year-long contracts and pointless restrictions, CHM offers anytime enrollment on your schedule and at your convenience. With CHM, you're paying half the cost of a traditional health insurance plan. So that puts more money back into your budget for everyday needs. Plus, you'll have access to CHM's care solutions for virtual appointments, prescription savings, surgery support, and more. My family and I joined in 2018, and it's changed our lives for the better. We love paying way less while helping other believers afford their medical bills. Take the leap of faith and see why Christians across the nation are better with CHM.
Get started by calling 1-833-JOIN-CHM. Use promo code WELLNESS for a 5% credit towards your first month. That's 1-833-JOIN-CHM and use promo code WELLNESS.
From the News Talk STL Weather Center.
I'm First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. More nice weather for the weekend, if anything, getting less humid and more comfortable. Overnight tonight, slight chance for a spot storm, mainly northeast of St. Louis. Most of us are dry, low of 71 degrees. A high of 87, that's near normal hot for the afternoon, but humidity will be falling throughout the day, so expect it to feel a little more comfortable. But it is toasty warm in the full sunshine, a mostly sunny day Saturday. Sunday, a little cooler, but still a warm day, 83. Mostly sunny to start, then turning partly cloudy, but low humidity, making it a great Sunday. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
This hour of News Talk STL brought to you by Chris Cooper and Serenity Wealth Management. Business owners, download your free playbook for financial clarity at SerenityWealthBiz.com. That's SerenityWealthBiz.com. If you have a phone, you have a radio.
I listen to News Talk STL on the app driving to work.
Download the News Talk STL app.
You got to get the News Talk STL app.
Love the app. Can listen anywhere in St. Louis.
And listen anytime. News Talk STL right on my phone. Anywhere.
Welcome back to Colombo and Company on 101.9 94.1 News Talk STL. A busy Friday afternoon. Thanks again to Steve Templeton, Channel 4 Chief Meteorologist, for joining us for the weekend forecast a few moments ago. Not about as good as you could ask for in late August in St. Louis. Tomorrow, high of 87 and mostly sunny with dropping humidity, and a high of 83 on Sunday with low humidity. So that's pretty good. And it kind of stays that way in the 80s with not crazy humidity as we start next week when most kids are getting back to school. So I'll take that. I'll take that every time in late August in the St. Louis area. I'm Tony Colombo in studio with producer Ashlyn, and joining us on the line now is the former mayor of Ferguson, Missouri, the city manager of Troy, Missouri, Mayor James Knowles. Mr. Mayor, how are you?
Doing great, Tony. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Lots of things that I want to talk to you about. Obviously, whenever we get Mayor Knowles on the line, it's a great time to dig into some of the local issues and big local topics of the day, and we've got a couple of those. When you said when we were talking off the air before the show today that flock cameras was one of the issues that you were really into and had a lot to say about, I was like, it just was unbelievably perfect timing, because I just had that identical conversation with the sheriff of Jefferson County, Sheriff Dave Marshak, who's a regular on the show, who wants to talk about flock cameras. And he was like, and I need more than 5 minutes. He's like, this is an issue. He's like, there's a lot to discuss here. And like, he's like, I want to get into it and I want to break it down. So let's find some time where we can, have a long conversation, which is what I love to do here, and which is why, one of the things that I like about being able, the way that we do this show and most of the conversations that happen throughout the day here on News Talk STL is it's not the 2 minute, scripted sound bites that you see on television or other places that you get, you just get a quick headline on what's going on and no actual discussion. So, there's a lot to dig into with the flock cameras, and a lot of this, there's always nuance and details of every story that we talk about that, are important context to the conversation. So we'll definitely want to get into that. I also want to talk about the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission's announcement about the end of their investigation into the former sheriff of St. Louis, Sheriff Alfred Montgomery, and this actually made me think of you, James, because after Ferguson, you can I don't want to go back into this completely, but you can touch on this as you've explained it in the past, which I don't think a lot of people realize happens if the federal government gets involved, especially with a law enforcement agency, and that's been questioned about something, or there's been an issue, and now the feds are here to investigate and try to make it right. It doesn't end with like yep, you were guilty of that, and so you're going to jail, or you were guilty of that, so you're going to get a fine, and here's the fine, and we move on, or whatever it may be, probations, like a penalty, and then it's over with. A lot of times, and I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ferguson is still dealing with this, it comes with guidelines and new rules that have to be abided by for years to come in many cases, that the federal government puts in place whenever they get involved in something like that. Does that make sense? And did I explain that somewhat clearly?
I mean, in our case, it was clearly, there was an accusation that our police department, and after their investigation, that there was a pattern or practice of civil rights abuses that they were claiming. We never went to court on that issue. What we did is we signed basically a reform agreement that said, you know what, will not concede to anything per se, but we will concede to taking steps to ensure that nothing happens in the future through future oversight, training, etc. And that agreement that we had with them was supposed to be for 5 years, and now we're 12 years later, we're still in the agreement. So once the feds get their claws in you, it's not necessarily going to be that easy to get out. It is unfortunate because in some cases, without going to court and without hearing both sides of the case, people will oftentimes go, well, this is what the Fed said, and this must be true. But I mean, as we've seen with Trump and a number of other cases, there have been many cases where the government likes to come out and they make their accusations, but it needs to go through the process to show that there really was culpability or there really was a violation, et cetera, because we've seen probably the most politicized part of our government, sadly, has been the Department of Justice, and it has been that way for years. I can tell you that I've experienced that personally, but I can tell you that I was warned about this from people when everybody came to investigate Ferguson. Hey, be careful. The feds are there. They've got a bone to pick, and they're not letting this go. And also, once you come to an agreement with them, it's not going to be one and done. It's going to be they want to control what goes on in your department for as long as they can. They've done it to lots of cities across the country. I know Trump has done a good job of trying to clear up some of that, but I mean, it still exists.
Well, and that's definitely playing a role. I'm just going to get into this now since we're talking about it. That's definitely part of this story, that this agreement with the federal government about things, ongoing. That now the St. Louis Sheriff's Department is going to have to check in with and report to and be monitored by. And of course, the big difference here between Ferguson and the St. Louis Sheriff's Office is that the St. Louis Sheriff's Office was clearly a mess and had some corruption within.
Well, yeah. Well, and the difference is, the difference in this case is they went to court,
right?
And he's been in court.
Yeah,
and this has been
there's more active court cases. It's not even over with. Yeah,
there's more. Yeah, there's more happening. So, no, I mean, I don't want to make it seem like it's an apples to apples comparison. But,
no, but I wanted to bring that up.
The lawfare against Trump.
Yeah.
Look at some of the lawfare that's been against a lot of people. Unfortunately, it's this has been going on for years. But in this case, you do see there are things like this. Alfred Montgomery's been in jail still for a year, maybe more, because obviously this has been something that's gone through the courts and they've shown really terrible things.
The audio that's out there. There's that whole 13-minute meeting that he had with the one deputy where the deputy had to roll the dice for his own employment. I mean, just it's wild, the evidence that they have.
And I think this is why it's important for people to realize, this is different than some of the things we've seen.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but I wanted to bring that up because I wanted people to understand that, once the federal government comes in and, makes a decision, it doesn't mean that, okay, here's the punishment, and now, now we all move on, that there's long-lasting repercussions of something like this, and you guys have exactly dealt with that in Ferguson, and now there's these agreements that are in place with the St. Louis Sheriff's Office.
And I think it's important that there are cases like this where you have shown a long history of issues there. The sad thing is there are people that are still defending, no matter what we've seen, no matter what's been shown in court, no matter what the videos and the audio tapes that that have been shown to prove what's been going on in that department. There are still people out there defending them, and that's the unfortunate reality, and that's one of the reasons why it is important that the government keep an eye on this.
Anybody that's doing that, and I know that you're right, I know that they are doing that, but that is literally the people that have their fingers plugging their ears and their eyes closed and going la 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 la, because if you look at any of the evidence or hear any of the evidence or read any of the evidence, it's so obvious. But here, let me get into some of this, because I want to get your thoughts on this. The U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission announced an agreement with the St. Louis Sheriff's Office to resolve 13 charges of race and age discrimination with the EEOC and the U.S. Department of Justice. The EEOC, which is the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, told reporters today, and this is a report from KMOV, Channel 4, EEOC told reporters today its investigation found reasonable cause to believe former Sheriff Alfred Montgomery terminated a group of older white employees and a black employee at the same time in January 2025 without any assessment of job performance or experience. The federal agency said, quote, before taking office, Montgomery said in December 2024 that he could not wait to get rid of the, quote, top-heavy employees. The EEOC said this showed his bias against older workers. The EEOC also said Montgomery targeted white employees for termination and fired a black employee after that employee spoke out against discrimination he observed happening to his long-term white colleagues. So the black guy only got fired because he was calling out the racism, according to this report from the EEOC. According to the EEOC, the sheriff's office denies the allegations and does not admit to violating any statute enforced by the EEOC, which that surprises me because it's so obvious. And as a department, now that you've gotten rid of the source of the problems, why not just admit, yeah, it was a bad time here. There was a lot of corruption when that guy was in charge, but he's not anymore. So let's move forward. To deny the allegations still, even after this investigation, is interesting to me.
I'll tell you, I completely understand the sentiment, to want to be able to say, yeah, we screwed up, mea culpa, we're better now. The unfortunate reality, and I blame lawyers for this, is that that's what the public would expect. That's what you and I expect as taxpayers, for them to say, like, okay, I'm sorry, we'll make amends, but we're going to do better now. But every one of their attorneys are going to say, don't ever admit to this, because if you do, just when you thought it was over, just when you thought, hey, we're all starting brand new, somebody shows up with a lawsuit, and they're like, oh, you just admitted you guys screwed up and it was a clown show here. Now I want my piece of the pie. I want a pound of flesh. And so that's the unfortunate reality. You wish you could just say, like, all right, we screwed up and we're going to do better. But the lawyers will never tell you. As long as the statute of limitations is still there for the civil remedy, nobody's going to admit anything wrong.
So the sheriff's office denied the allegations and does not admit to violating any statute enforced by the EEOC. However, the office agreed to engage in the EEOC's pre-litigation conciliation process following the investigation. The process resulted in a, here you go, 5-year agreement. You know all about those 5-year agreements
right.
with the federal government. The process resulted in a 5-year agreement requiring the St. Louis Sheriff's Office to do the following things. There's five requirements listed here that the St. Louis Sheriff's Department must do for the next 5 years in cooperation with the federal government. And like you said, the 5-year agreement in Ferguson has been in place now for 12 years. So, we'll see how this goes. Number 1, electronically post and distribute all newly created and revised employment policies in compliance with Title VII and the ADEA. Number 2, provide training to employees about their rights under Title VII and the ADEA. Number 3, train human resources personnel and management with decision-making authority. Number 4, post a notice to employees about the resolution of the case and their rights under the laws enforced by the EEOC. And number 5, report to the EEOC about compliance with the terms of the 13 conciliation agreements. The agreements resolve the matters between the federal government and the sheriff's office, the EEOC, and the Department of Justice. The former employees retain their rights to proceed to court in the various cases already in process against Alfred Montgomery. So it doesn't resolve any of his legal issues.
Yeah, they got to make sure that those guys are still individually going to get their
right,
payday
exactly
on this.
Exactly. Anything stand out there as concerning or something that stands out to you in that list, or is that does that sound like a pretty decent agreement in your opinion?
I mean, it sounds like a pretty decent agreement. I'd love to see how
thought so too.
How many pages it was, but if you can, like when we agreed in Ferguson to say, look, we want to be the best department. We want to instill confidence in people. So let's talk about the types of things that we need to do to be a model department. And the frustrating thing is that the Department of Justice kept moving the goalpost on us. When we talk about doing things like update our use of force policies, when we talk about things like, change the way we, approach community policing, a lot of that stuff is not well defined. Sounds like in this agreement it's well defined, and hopefully if the agreement itself is clearly articulated, the sheriff's department should be able to say, okay, we got a list of things to do. We're going to check boxes 1 through 12, and we're going to keep doing that. It's going to be a better situation for our employees. We're going to better serve the community, and the federal government should be able to acknowledge that we did it, and then we're done with the agreement.
Yeah, I mentioned those to give a little bit of context. Yeah, just to give a little context here, because I think it's important, and it explains also what you're talking about. I mentioned the ADEA in those first two: electronically post and distribute all newly created and revised employment policies in compliance with Title VII and the ADEA, and then the other one was provide training to employees about their rights under Title VII and ADEA. That's all surrounding age discrimination. The ADEA is Age Discrimination Employment Act. So, and Title VII regards that as well as racism and all of that, which is obviously what this guy, Sheriff Montgomery, is. That's the crux of the investigation here. Him firing deputies that were either what he thought were older and therefore making more money, and to get that, to remove them from the books just simply because of their age. And then also they found him guilty of firing people for being white. So that's what the Title VII and the ADEA parts of that mean. Yeah. Just thought it was important context.
No, absolutely.
So we'll see how this all plays out, but it's amazing how much damage and how much he got away with. And in a relatively short period of time, too. Honestly, he wasn't the sheriff in St. Louis for,
he
decades.
rolled in like day one.
Yeah.
He rolled in day one with the set of gold dice and
exactly.
started saying, roll for your job.
Exactly.
I mean, this guy was planning it
He
out.
took over, and the shenanigans began immediately. And this wraps up the federal investigation into the St. Louis Sheriff's Department, and all of these things, these agreements and requirements are in place for the next 5 years, but it's far from over when it comes to Sheriff Montgomery and his other legal cases and consequences that could still be heading his way. So we'll continue to keep an eye on all of that. All right, we are talking to the former mayor of Ferguson, Missouri, Mayor James Knowles, the city manager of Troy, and we are going to talk about another very hot local issue, flock cameras. We're going to have that discussion with Mayor Knowles as we continue here on Colombo and Company next.
Watch us on our live stream using Rumble, Facebook, and Twitter.
Talk about race relations.
This conversation has completely made me crazy.
This is complete insanity.
And I'm sick and tired of it.
101.9 and 94.1.
I find it to be a conversation starter.
News Talk STL.
So it's going to be a really nice weekend. If you're thinking about getting outside, maybe getting out on the water, doing some fishing, don't forget about Bluff City Outdoors in Alton, Illinois, the #1 place to go for everyone in the outdoor community. in the St. Louis area, whether it be fishing or bow hunting or trapping or anything out there in the great outdoors. They have you covered at Bluff City Outdoors. They're open 7 days a week, about a mile east of Fast Eddie's there on East Broadway in Alton. Don't forget about the Bluff City Outdoors show every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. You can tune in right here on News Talk STL. Myself, local professional fisherman Mike Marfell, the owner of Bluff City Outdoors, Mark McMurray, bring you conversation about fishing and hunting and the great outdoors each and every week, including our weekly fishing report across the entire area, across the bi-state area. From Rend Lake in Illinois to the Lake of the Ozarks and Table Rock in Missouri and everything in between. We get fishing reports, and we share that with you every Saturday morning. And then again, for all of your fishing needs, all your bow hunting needs, all your trapping needs, all your Garmin electronic needs, you can even shoot every day at Bluff City Outdoors in their state-of-the-art archery range. And speaking of that bow hunting stuff, right now is a great time. Fishing is on fire. And they've got you covered, of course, with all the equipment, frozen bait, live bait, everything you need to go fishing. They got you at Bluff City Outdoors. It's going to be here before you know it, hunting season. So if you need to get new strings on your bow, or you need new equipment, or you need some repairs done, it's not too early to take advantage of the best bow techs in the St. Louis area out at Bluff City Outdoors either. So get out there and check them out. Tune in every Saturday morning at 11 a.m. for the Bluff City Outdoors show. Follow Bluff City Outdoors on Facebook and at bluffcityoutdoors.com.
I think we should be able to have a civil conversation.
The news and talk that matters to St. Louis.
This conversation has completely made me crazy.
This is complete insanity.
News Talk STL.
Fox News commentary with Kennedy next.
You're probably listening to this in your car, so let me ask you, would you drive without insurance? Of course not. So why is your retirement portfolio unprotected? Gold is portfolio insurance. It helps de-risk your savings when markets get unpredictable. Noble Gold Investments has helped thousands of Americans do exactly that, with no high-pressure sales and thousands of 5-star reviews. Visit noblegoldinvestments.com. That's noblegoldinvestments.com. Past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals involves risk. Consult with your tax or financial professional before making any investment decisions.
Here's Kennedy.
This is a woman who, in the throes of her suicidal thoughts and her depression, when she was going through this crisis between September 2022 and January 2023, she was writing notes to herself about wanting to have a fourth child. So clearly, that was part of her pathology. And it's like, how many people did she have to tell, I want to kill myself. I think about killing myself every single day. I want to harm the children. At that point, and I know this would cause her more distress than anything, you have to remove the children from the house. But you can't do that if you're so worried about how that looks from the outside world and what the neighbors are going to say and what people are going to say if all of a sudden the kids aren't there. Well, now the kids aren't there forever.
For more commentary like this, go to foxnewspodcast.com.
At Body of Health, we're a small but mighty family operation with big ambitions for your health. I'm Helene Tobler, and I'm jazzed about how our MRI-grade body composition analyzer is putting personalized health and wellness on steroids. It helps me and Dr. Tobler, that's my husband, refine the advice we give to help you feel better and live longer. Body of Health, trusted, discerning, affordable health care the way it ought to be. Learn more at bodyofhealth.com. That's bodyofhealth.com.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
Senator Hawley, I grew up in North County. The subdivision that I lived in, Coldwater Creek, ran through our neighborhood.
The federal government dumped radioactive waste into the water, into the air, and they knew about it. They've done it for 70 years, and they've lied about it. And people in our state and in that region in particular have gotten sick and died.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps, weekdays at 4 on News Talk STL.
1949, the last time a Republican held the top post in St. Louis City. A gallon of milk was 84 cents, and streetcars ran down Grand Avenue. Unfortunately, St. Louis City streets are no longer the epicenter of family and business life. In the 80 years of Democrat control, our city has been on a steady decline.
Hello, Kirk Ilsinger, chairman of the Republican Party for the city of St. Louis, and we believe it is our duty to provide a different path forward. I invite you to our meetings the first Thursday of every month. Learn more at stl-gop.com.
Paid for by St. Louis City Republican PAC. Curtis Farber, Treasurer.
On the next, Larry Connors, USA.
The story behind the story, tradition, Friday Night Lights.
high school football.
Larry Connors USA.
Now, weeknights 6 until 8.
On News Talk STL.
Somewhere they're speaking, it's already coming in.
Welcome back to Colombo and Company on 101.9 94.1 News Talk STL. Tony Colombo here in studio with producer Ashlyn. We've got the former mayor of Ferguson, Mayor James Knowles, on the line with us. Before we get into the conversation about flock cameras, which is becoming one of the big local issues, want to do a quick update here on a couple of things. I mentioned at the top of the hour, we got a report from the Supreme Court. Chief Justice John Roberts has temporarily allowed the above-ground construction of President Donald Trump's White House ballroom to continue today. He issued a stay of a lower court injunction that had been blocking that work. And the reason they specify above ground because there's work on that ballroom underground where there's other things being built, national security operations and things like that. And that previous court ruling said that they could keep working underground, but they had to stop working above ground. So that's why it's worded like that. Really interesting stuff. And I think will be a big topic on all the news shows over the weekend, and something we'll certainly pick up and dig into as we learn more over the weekend and when we get back on Monday, especially on Tuesday when we talk to Susie Moore, our legal expert, who has been all over this issue with us. Also, I mentioned this earlier, and this will be great conversation for Monday when we have our very own rocket scientist, Gabe Pfeiffer, on with us. Donald Trump's administration issued their new space policy today. The new space policy aims to ramp up U.S. space traffic to nearly 3 launches a day by 2030. That space travel will be so common if Trump's path forward is turned into a reality, that we would have shuttles going up 3 times a day by 2030. That's a big change from the years of almost nothing that we had in place until recent times. So we're going to dig into that announcement by the White House and talk about those details with our resident rocket scientist, Gabe Pfeiffer, on Monday. All right, let's get back into the conversation with Mayor James Knowles. Just a few days ago, there was a article on the Fox 2 website, the local Fox website, with the headline, "Map reveals over 1,000 flock cameras in the St. Louis area." James, this has become a really hot topic across the metro area, and I think it's only going to get more and more passionate and a bigger issue as time goes on. What are your thoughts on these flock cameras and the importance of having this conversation?
I think, like a lot of things, the pendulum right now is swinging against them. I think a lot of that has to do with the lack of oversight and what we've now discovered to be the number of abuses that have occurred with the information that's collected by Flock and with the people who have access, to the data in Flock. And I think it kind of surprised me. I will tell you, when I became city administrator out in Darden Prairie out in 2021, and I was shocked because we didn't really have a lot of flock cameras, at least that we knew of, in St. Louis County. Didn't have any up in North County, really. When I was mayor of Ferguson, we didn't have any in Ferguson. And I was shocked at the number that were in St. Charles County. And as it became more well known by our HOAs and the HOA leaders, like, people were begging for them. I mean, we had HOAs fighting over, will the city put these in? Well, we won't put them in, but the HOA can put it in. They wanted them at the entrance to their subdivisions, so they knew who was coming into their subdivision, people casing houses, stealing cars, whatever. You might be surprised, there is crime in St. Charles County. So people were concerned. And as you can see, from the data that's been released recently, there's a ton in St. Charles County. And they'd been used very effectively, for crime and, crime control and investigations. I know we had incidents that, in part because of Flock, we were able to track that incidents that occurred in Darden Prairie that went to O'Fallon, to Lake St. Louis, to Wentzville, stolen cars, people who were stealing cars and then committing crimes along the way. We were able to use that data and that technology to help track that, to eventually catch these people, and not only just catch them, but piece together the whole evening of crimes that occurred along the way because of the Flock cameras. So I'm kind of shocked that everybody all of a sudden is like, oh my God, these things exist, and we're very concerned about their existence. I would be very concerned about their
no data centers, no Flock cameras. You can run on that and probably win an election right now.
You're right.
You're right.
But I mean, there was the guy who murdered those people of, was it Idaho, I guess it was, and then drove back to New York City. That young guy who killed those college kids.
Yeah,
up
the four
out west. They, part of what they were able to use was LPRs and other data that they pieced together all the way across the country to catch this guy. If you're, you and I have kids, and my kids are a little bit, well, you actually, James is younger than my kids even, so you're James, not my James.
Mm-hmm.
We both have them. But, if somebody snatched up our kid and we were like, hey, all we know is there's a car, this is what the car looks like. It's amazing what the AI in those Flock cameras can flag.
Yeah.
If you know the license plate, it's even better. But if somebody was able to say, hey, look, there's an Adam alert, or the missing kids alerts that go out there, and be able to track this information, I would want to know that it wasn't just hopeless. Because in the old days, when you and I grew up in North County and Cassidy Center was kidnapped and Angie Hausman was kidnapped, they were snatched, they were gone.
Yeah.
Oh, it was a white car. We don't know. Good luck. We found those kids months or years later dead.
So let me ask you this, because I
just think it's about safeguards.
I agree with you. I agree with you, and I've made my opinions clear about this. And as a person who loves to go down the rabbit hole of like Law and Order podcasts or YouTube videos. I can't tell you how many times you watch one where like a suspect, a murderer or a kidnapper was tracked, 45, we saw him go through this intersection and here's the car. And, 45 seconds later, they turned left at this other because, and they can track them through these cameras that are through the city and how much, a particular area and how much that has helped people. And, being somebody who, talks about being a libertarian and having a libertarian mindset, and that's why I don't line up with Republicans, certainly 100% of the time, and definitely don't line up with the Democrats, almost ever these days.
At all.
Yeah. But, having that mindset, people know that I am somebody who's very much for personal freedoms and along with that, personal privacy. However, and this is, I think, surprised some people, I'm kind of with you on it, but there's so much context to this. You do not have the right to privacy in public. That's my opinion. If somebody's trying to put a camera on your property,
well, that's a legal opinion too.
Yeah, right. But
it's actually real.
If it's in your vehicle, if it's in your home, if it's on your property, these are all different things. You definitely are entitled to every bit of privacy on your property, in your home, in your vehicle, or anything else like that. I am not necessarily against the idea of these cameras being put in different places in public. My concern is, and where I think where the opinion turns, is what are we doing with the information on those cameras? Are we using them to track people that we don't really have a criminal reason to be tracking people? Are we selling, their data? Are we selling their personal, like, here's what these people, are doing. Here's where they shop. Here's how they travel. And we can sell that data. That's valuable information that we can sell. That's the concern and the problem. And unfortunately, we've uncovered some of those things starting to happen. But when it comes to just the security things, I agree with you completely. I don't mind there being cameras, and I don't know. Do people understand the difference when we say flock camera? Do they automatically think that this is something more than a security camera? Because if you were to say we want to have security cameras placed in various places throughout the metro area, would that phrasing it security cameras would there be less of a opposition to that when you say flock cameras, even though they're the same things, they just kind of initiate a different reaction from people? Do you think?
Well, I think it's the emotion of the moment, and there's also just the mob mentality on Facebook, unfortunately. Yeah. But I mean, every time something happens at one of our parks in Troy, it's why don't we have cameras? Why don't we have more cameras?
Right.
Why do we have it? We had some kids last year break into the pool and they stole the palm trees from the pool, and they brought them back at the end of the season, which was kind of wild. But these kids, we couldn't tell who they were on the camera. They were put a mask on or whatever, and well, how come you didn't have more cameras? I'm like, well, what am I supposed to see through a Halloween mask? I mean, it's
yeah.
But people say things like that, and then all of a sudden, it's probably the same people that are like, oh, Troy better not have flock cameras. It's like, you want them at the concession stand, at the pool, at the park. You want them where you want them, and you don't where you don't. The reality is, the street, any business, like you said, I got a Ring camera on my door. I can see like 5 of my neighbors' houses. I can see who comes and goes across the street from their house from my Ring camera.
Yep.
Like, that's, if I really wanted to, that's kind of creepy if I was going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, who's to stop me? I can't put an invisible barrier at the street. This is a tool that, like you said, I think the concerning things we have to worry about are, how is this information being used? Who's accessing it?
Mm-hmm.
How is it being utilized? People don't think about their smartphones, but oh my God!
Oh.
I mean,
tracking everything you do, everywhere you go.
Development professional, like what we do here to bring businesses to town, we subscribe to a couple different services where, like, we just had the Lincoln County Fair. I can run a report to see how many people's cell phone accounts from and where they're from came to visit the Lincoln County Fair and when, and then where they went after, and where they shopped after. I have all this economic data that we, as economic development professionals, we just go online and we buy it.
Yeah.
And then we know how to market to people.
Yeah.
So people are
because the cell phone companies or the app companies or whoever are selling it, are making that available to people.
So,
yeah.
It's crazy what's available, to your point, out there, and people just aren't even thinking about it. And right now they're freaking out about the issue of the day because you have some bad actors and they need to be held accountable. One of the problems I always have is that every time we find out something like this is going on, we sweep it under the rug, we slap people's wrists, or we really don't follow through with it. You need to prosecute these people. You need to hold them accountable. Cops who are, stalking people, tracking their ex-girlfriend, stuff like that.
Yeah, because that's a really good one.
Never be a cop again. You need to be prosecuted heavily, and instead we're like, oh well, we'll give him probation and whatever, and then 6 months later he'll be a cop in a crappy department somewhere down the road.
Yeah,
that's got to stop. And if it does, we won't be having these problems in the future.
Amen.
And then real cops can use these tools to protect us.
Yeah, you nailed a really big one there. Not only the selling of data, but the idea of, and unfortunately it's happened, and just like, I'm a big proponent and supporter of law enforcement and local police departments, but just like every occupation, there's going to be a minority of bad actors in there that will give the department a bad rap. And this kind of thing, these flock cameras, if somebody's got a personal vendetta against a neighbor or an ex or whatever it may be, and they have access to these cameras and they can track where they're going and who they're visiting and, their movements and things like that, that is one of the concerns with these things. And making sure that we do everything we can to not allow the data to be sold, to punish people that use these cameras, as you just said, use these cameras, for a way that they're not intended. Then I think that there can be a lot of benefit from these security cameras being placed throughout the area. But people don't trust, the government. They don't trust the cameras, and that I think is going to be the biggest problem moving forward.
Yeah, I would almost be more concerned about the private industry having this information than the government.
Yeah.
Because anymore, I mean, these private industries are making this information available for all kinds of purposes, and there's very little oversight. At least with government, you have some chance of oversight. I mean,
and the government's bad at everything, so they wouldn't even be good at selling it.
Screw it up.
Yeah, they'd screw it up anyway. That's a really good point. That's a really good point. We got a few minutes here before we have to hand it off to the Tim Jones and Chris Arp show. We're going to have a little Friday fun time. Mary, can you stick around for a little Friday fun time? All right. Great stuff. We're going to continue the conversation with the former mayor of Ferguson, city manager of Troy, Missouri, Mayor James Knowles, and some Friday fun time next.
Follow Tony Colombo on Twitter at Tony Colombo Talk. Number one for live and local conservative talk.
I just would like to get your comments on that.
I'm so glad that you're on the radio, and I want to thank you for that.
I'll tell you why.
101.9 and 94.1.
I love these people.
St. Louis is number one for conservative talk.
News Talk STL.
We're talking about these flock cameras and selling data and all of those kind of things. Those are some of the issues we talk about every Tuesday with our big tech AI expert, Mike McCleary from Intervine. Mike is, a great local business owner, and that business is Intervine. You know Mike, and we know that we love to support local businesses, especially ones that are making the best products or services in their category, and that is exactly what's happening with Intervine. Flashlights, lanterns, headlamps, all different shapes and sizes, batteries in all different shapes and sizes. That's what you get at Intervine.com if you're looking for a heavy-duty lantern or tech flashlight for the hardcore outdoorsman in your life, or you just need a small, super bright, reliable flashlight, lantern, headlamp for the glove box of your vehicle or a drawer in your home. Intervine has you covered across the board. You can also stock up on batteries, AA, AAA batteries at Intervine.com, and you can do it all for 25% off right now. Just an incredible deal, especially if you're just stocking up on batteries. I mean, just our house, we have electronics, kids with electronics all over the place. You can never have enough batteries, and to be able to get batteries for 25% off is just an amazing deal. And then all the great flashlights, lanterns, and headlamps, all of it available at Intervine. All you got to do is use my name, Tony, Tony, as your promo code at checkout at Intervine.com to get 25% off everything. Intervine is INTERVINE. Use Tony as your promo code at checkout for 25% off everything at Intervine.com.
Rhino Shield is far superior to even the best traditional exterior house paint. Rhino Shield is 8 to 10 times thicker than paint and comes with a 25-year transferable warranty. Rhino Shield is the only ceramic coating company that has been chosen by Disney, This Old House, and 3 times on HGTV's Curb Appeal, where every episode is concentrated on unpainted brick, bonds and seals to stucco, wood, hardy, block, color lock, masonite, and more. No better product for those steel aluminum-sided homes that have become, chalky and tired looking. We coat sloped and flat roofs to extend their lives too. After 15 years, we've got a great reputation and a superior product. As long as it's affordable, why wouldn't you do it? Before you make the costly mistake of painting with traditional paint, you'd be best served to call Rhino Shield today. We are the experts and our evaluations are free. 877-25-RHINO or 877-25rhino.com. Tell them, ladies.
Don't paint, don't Rhino, go Rhino Shield. Never paint your house again. Rhino Shield.
Looking for unbelievable deals? Stop by Overstock Outlet in Lake St. Louis or Warrenton. Open 7 days a week. Discover big savings on a huge variety of merchandise with no hassle. Just great prices. Visit us in Lake St. Louis on Highway N or in Warrenton on Boones Lake. Check out our Facebook page at Overstock Outlet Lake St. Louis. Or go online to overstockoutletstl.com. Unbeatable value, friendly service, and you never know what we'll have at Overstock Outlet.
Welcome back to Colombo Company on 101.9 News Talk STL. Tony Colombo here in studio with the former mayor of Ferguson, Mayor James Knowles, on the line with us. A little Friday fun time here before we head into the weekend. Hand it off to the Tim Jones and Chris Arp show. Last weekend for many of the kids in the area for their summer vacation, so it's a big one. Weather's going to be great. Steve Templeton gave us a great weekend forecast a little bit earlier. 80s both days, lower humidity. Can't beat it. Tomorrow, Mayor, is National Tooth Fairy Day. The Tooth Fairy is paying out more than ever in history. The average payout for a tooth in 2026 is $5.84, nearly $6 a tooth. I wish I was getting $6 a tooth from the Tooth Fairy when I was a kid. Does that sound about right to you, or does that sound a little high? Or does it sound a little low?
I'm embarrassed because I know the Tooth Fairy in our house is he's making it rain. So
you're pulling the average. You're yanking that average up.
We're about $20 a tooth.
Woo-wee, you man!
Well,
you got
here's the deal. I tell
whatever Tooth Fairy's running that area over there by your house is really doing a great job for the kids.
I tell the kids that, well, my point is, look, kids, you got your own money. Like, don't keep coming to me. You know, every time you lose a tooth, I'm sitting here scraping pennies together and it's like, can I have this? Yeah, you can. You got your own money. And hopefully the kids are trying to learn a little bit about the value of the dollar. One thing they've done, though, they've learned to save money because they know they go to mom, and then mom will buy it for them anyway.
Yeah.
So all the money they're getting from the Tooth Fairy, they're banking. So, yeah, it's backfiring on the Tooth Fairy in our house.
Since 1998, when I guess they started tracking this stuff, the Tooth Fairy payout has surged 349%. In 1998, it was $1.30 was the national average. Now, as I said, nearly $6. So,
wow,
man, it's a good time to be a kid, and if you can get close to that Knowles household, maybe some of that extra.
I don't know. I always did pretty good. I mean, I lost teeth in the early 80s.
Yeah.
I felt like I was probably getting $5 back then.
Really? I think I was $1. I can't remember.
Maybe $1. I
think it was
know.
maybe I don't know. So it's a good day to be. It's a good day to be a kid losing teeth. It's not a good day to be Taylor Swift, believe it or not, who has been on top of the world, over the last couple of years. The website Ranker.com just did a big national survey on the best female musicians of all time. You want to guess? I said it's not good. You want to guess where Taylor Swift landed on that list? And if I wouldn't have already said that it was not good for her, what would you have thought she would have been at?
Well, I mean, you said female musicians of
all time.
I mean, entertainer, maybe. I don't know. Maybe she's getting, I don't know, maybe she'd be higher up if it was not just her musical abilities. But I'd say maybe in top 20 musicians of all time, maybe top 5 entertainers. I don't know.
She's on this list, number 54.
Wow. Janis
How
Joplin's
the mighty have fallen.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, when you say musician, they got Gladys Knight. They got everybody.
Yeah.
Over
Well, but one thing that Taylor Swift actually does do is write her own music and play instruments, unlike so many other pop stars. But nobody knows that anymore because she doesn't do that type of music anymore. Like nobody sees her doing that anymore, so I don't think she gets that kind of credit.
It's more about her choreography now.
Yeah, exactly. But, number 59 on the list. I only have the top 20 here, but there's a note here that says that Enya even ranked higher than Taylor Swift on this. The top 10, Whitney Houston, Tina Turner, Aretha Franklin, Celine Dion, Dolly Parton, Karen Carpenter, Ella Fitzgerald, Adele, Stevie Nicks, and Donna Summers. That's the top 10. Lady Gaga's also in the top 20. Diana Ross in the top 20. Madonna is number 20. So some other big names on there. But yeah, I think most people would have guessed these days that Taylor Swift would be up there in that top 5, top 10 at least. Number 59.
Yeah.
kind of
She's laughing all the way to the bank.
Yeah, right. I actually, believe it or not, for the first time ever, I think that that's a little low for Taylor Swift. I don't think she's in the top 10 or anything like that, but I don't know that she's number 59.
I contend if there was a list of entertainers,
Yeah,
or
that
even
could be.
musical entertainers, she probably would do better. But as long as Adele's beating you out,
Yeah,
I'm sure
right.
it has something to do with her singing ability and not her,
Yeah.
overall skills.
Yeah. Also, not sure that Whitney Houston belongs at number 1. She's great. Don't get me wrong. She's up there on the list, but number 1 female musician.
Well, I mean,
of all
again, she's
time.
a great singer, but I
Yeah.
mean, she didn't play any instruments.
Yeah,
that I know
not
of,
gonna get into that list, and unpack it, but not sure that that is exactly right either. Hey, one more quick one here. We're talking to the former mayor of Ferguson, city manager Troy, Missouri, Mayor James Knowles. Little Friday fun time here on Colombo and Company. Little PSA for all the oldsters listening. Gen Z has a new slang word that is an insult that you need to be on the lookout for. I could let you guess. I could let you guess for an hour. You'd never get it. Polyester. It's a slang insult for anything that is low quality or inauthentic. So if one of your kids or somebody out there is talking about you and they're like, oh, that's polyester, like, that's not good. They're insulting you. So be aware. Polyester is the new insult for Gen Z.
Yeah, that would have never. I guess it makes as much sense as Riz or no cap or other.
I have no idea where it came from. In the story here, there's an example of a TikToker who was an 18-year-old TikToker who put out a viral video about how much money they make and how they're like 18 years old and they're already, a $1 million business owner and doing all this. And the top comment is polyester lifestyle, like just calling them out for being a fake. And so there's an example of how you would use polyester as an insult. But, just a PSA for all us old guys, when you hear the kids talking, if they call you polyester, they're making fun of you. So
now I know what they're saying behind my back.
Now you know. Exactly. Exactly. Mayor James Knowles, thanks as always for your time, my friend. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you again soon.
You too, Tony. Take care.
Awesome stuff there. We will be back on Monday at 2. Keep it here for Larry's commentary next. Then the Tim Jones and Chris Arp Show.
Hi, this is St. Louis County Councilman Mark Harder reminding you to check out my new show this weekend.
The St. Louis County Insider with Councilman Mark Harder.
That's me. Every Sunday evening at 5, we will explore with you behind-the-scenes stories and information that you won't hear anywhere else. Plus, we talk to decision makers and influencers that have impact on what's going on in St. Louis County and beyond.
The St. Louis County Insider with Councilman Mark Harder.
I'll talk to you Sunday night at 5, only on News Talk STL.
This is Larry Connor's commentary on News Talk STL.
I have a question for you. Do you know what the state motto is for California? Let me help you by telling you what it isn't. California's motto is not the Golden State. Usually state mottos are derived or created from something that makes that state distinctive, something it wants to represent. The Missouri state motto is, in Latin, translated, let the welfare of the people be supreme law. Illinois, state sovereignty, national union. Kansas, again, in Latin, translated,